Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Welcome back to The Morning Answer with John and Amy. Amy,
Hello.
I really do love doing radio with you because one of the things about you, we can do radio, and it's not about competition, and it's not about who gets credit. It's about let's do a same team a same team type of approach, and we have fun.
Yes, we do.
We laugh. People want to know why we laugh. I got a text message. Why y'all laughing so much?
Yeah, we had a case of the giggles at 5 o'clock this morning.
But they don't understand the back, some of the side stories that we say right before we come on or during the breaks. Amy, when you think about how the country feels about Elon Musk, how they feel about Donald Trump, how they feel about what some of the things that DOGE is doing, a lot of people think that what DOGE is doing is wrong, especially those on the left. They think Elon Musk is bad for the USA. And Senator Chuck Schumer actually said that.
Senator, what's your opinion of the violence against Tesla, their products? What are your thoughts on that? Do you denounce the violence against Tesla products and dealerships and cars in the streets?
I can't talk about Tesla, but Elon Musk is a disaster for America, and America knows it. Look at Wisconsin.
When you here's the question, Amy. How is Elon Musk bad for the country when you look at what he's trying to do, not getting paid to do it, not the creator of DOGE, because Howard Lutnick is actually the creator of DOGE. He came up with the idea of doing DOGE. And I want to know, how is Elon Musk bad for America? Joining us to discuss this, and I hope I'm saying his name right, because you and I are both butchers of names.
We're called the name assassinators.
We are.
John.
I have been. Trevi Troy. He's the author of The Power and the Money: The Epic Clashes Between Commanders-in-Chiefs and Titans of Energy. He's a senior fellow at the Bipartisan Policy Center, a senior scholar at the Yeshiva University Strauss Center. He's also a former White House aide, and that's interesting. And Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Trevi, welcome to The Morning Answer.
Thanks for having me. You got it exactly right. And the amazing thing about that Schumer response is that he doesn't denounce the violence. I still can't get over that.
Right.
I know. No one has come forward. AOC, I mean, they've had plenty of time because they're doing this Fight Oligarchy tour. They've had plenty of opportunities to come out and say, hey, you know what, guys? Can you calm down? Or tone it down when it comes to keying Teslas, firebombing Tesla dealerships or charging stations? Because guess what? At some point in time, somebody's going to get hurt.
They are getting hurt. Oh, there have been reports of clashes of people actually fighting and things of that nature.
Oh,
and these people just
somebody would try to key my Tesla.
You did?
I would. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah.
Why would you just stand by and let somebody do that? And I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world for Schumer to just say, I condemn violence, but maybe I don't like Elon Musk. And, I think it really does fit in. Thank you for that intro to my book, The Power of the Money, because these titans of industry, these CEOs of big, iconic companies have been in the forefront of our conversation on politics for over 150 years. That's what my book's about, these clashes between presidents and CEOs that have gone back all the way to John D. Rockefeller and Teddy Roosevelt. It's not a new thing in our country. Obviously, Elon Musk, there are differences in the Musk situation, but there's a lot of echoes in history with what's happening now.
Trevi, you've chronicled the complex relationships between presidents and industry leaders. How does Trump's confrontational approach compare to past presidents who've challenged corporate power?
Well, I mean, you think about Teddy Roosevelt, who I mentioned earlier. I mean, he reveled in taking on corporations. He created something called the Bureau of Corporations to take on the corporations. He went after people like J.P. Morgan and John D. Rockefeller, and he was excited about it. Another Roosevelt was Franklin Roosevelt, who was loathed by the big corporations. He said, they hate me, and I welcome their hatred. So, both presidents of the same name but different parties, and they've been willing they've been taking on corporate interests and have real concerns about corporations. So it's not a new thing in American politics.
Well, let's go back to Elon Musk, though, because he used to be a Democrat. He used to be the climate czar. Like, he's going to save us from fossil fuels with these electric cars. And now he's changed teams. And I think that that's hard for a lot of Democrats to process And especially what I keep hearing from the left is we didn't vote for him to be president. We voted, we voted for Harris, but they're saying that, I don't think Republicans voted for Elon Musk to be president.
Well, yeah, and he's not president. I mean, let's just take one issue. If he were president, he would have done the tariffs, as he's made very clear. So, I mean, he is focused on one area, and this is an area of an agreement with him and Trump. They don't always agree, and they didn't always agree. Back in the first term, Musk was left one of Trump's advisory boards because he didn't like what Trump was doing on climate change, for example. So there have been disagreements with Trump and Musk, and I don't think that the Trump presidency is at all the Musk presidency. But you're right that Musk himself has changed, and it's not just because he's gotten closer to Trump, but I think the Biden administration and the Democrats have also driven him away. I mean, Biden had that electric car summit at the White House and didn't invite Musk. It was an intentional slight. I mean, how could you do an electric car summit in this country and not have the guy who created Tesla?
Yeah.
Why did he do that?
What's that?
Biden not invite Musk. I remember that. That was such a slap in the face. Do you any inside information on why Elon Musk was ostracized from that meeting?
Yeah, I mean, the Biden folks didn't like him. He was moving in this more free speech direction. He denounced the woke mind virus. He buys X, which happened after that, by the way. But yeah, I mean, there was a sense that Elon Musk was becoming more libertarian and less in line with the Democrats' views on things.
According to the USTR report, U.S. tariffs collected on Chinese imports surged from $12.3 billion in 2017 to over $74 billion by 2020. Have you seen any modern president in history implement a more aggressive economic weapon against a rival superpower? So-called superpower, I should say.
I mean, we obviously had strong sanctions against the Soviet Union, but the difference with the Soviet Union and the China situation is that we weren't actively trying to integrate Russia into our economy while they were our implacable enemy. What happened with China was we said we're going to integrate China's economic system with our economic system, and China is going to liberalize, and then everyone's going to be happy. And it didn't work. So now what Trump is doing, and Biden also kept the China tariffs, what we're recognizing is that China is not a friend of the U.S. or the West in general, and we're trying to separate after 20-plus years of trying to integrate, and it's hard and it's painful.
Well, President Xi and President Trump have to sit down and talk at some point in time. Who's going to call each other first here?
Yeah, that's a really good question because face saving is really important in the Chinese culture, but Trump is all about face. And so I don't really know how they manage that, but I think there's a lot of people around the world who will benefit from them finally sitting down and having that conversation. So somebody's going to have to either blink or they're going to have to come up with some face-saving compromise that allows both of them to come to the table without appearing to bend the knee.
Well, President Trump, yesterday or 2 days ago, he said, when asked about tariffs, he says, "I'm flexible. I don't change my mind." And then he posted on Truth Social, "Nobody is getting off the hook, just moving to a different tariff bucket." Does that sound like a form of concessions there? Or concession?
Well, I mean, Trump has this combination of clarity and vagueness. Mm-hmm. When he speaks, you know what he's saying, but he avoids saying certain things so as not to get caught by them. So it's a very strange way of talking that actually lets voters know what he's saying. They know what he's talking about, but he doesn't actually get into the details. And I think that is an attempt, I guess, to give him some wiggle room.
Yeah. During your tenure at HHS, you worked on the National Preparedness Plan for, I believe it was the avian flu pandemic. When you look at what's happening in China, I interviewed someone from China on Detroit's Morning Answer last week, and he talked about the H5N1 that China's basically hiding now. Are we ready should another bioweapon hit the American shores? Are we prepared for this next wave? Should it come?
I mean, it's a great question. It's hard to know until you see what the strain is. I think we had more prep done by the U.S. government on flu in general than we did on coronavirus, which is something I wrote about in my 2016 book on Presidents and Disasters, that we were thinking about flu and we knew what to do with it. You can make adjustments based on the strain, but we didn't know what to do with coronaviruses, and that was made horrifically manifest starting in 2019, 2020. But if it's if it is, as you suggest, a bioweapon that is engineered in a way to defeat our countermeasures, that could be a real problem.
Yeah. When you look at, you said what I deem as a bioweapon. When you look at Rand Paul and how he's gone after Dr. Fauci, and how he lied about so many different things as it related to gain of function research and things of that nature, and the source of where it came from, the Wuhan lab. When you look at during that time in Trump's first administration, Trump was getting ready to put tariffs on China, and then all of a sudden this happens. Do you understand how these conspiracy theories are birthed because of when you see actions like this? Do you believe it was a bioweapon, or was it just something that naturally occurred?
I think neither, actually. I think it was a lab leak from that Wuhan lab. I'm not sure China was planning to release it at that time, but the fact that they were developing it is itself a problem. And then with respect to avian flu, I think there are some strains out there that are not biogenetically engineered, but that are also a problem. That's one of the reasons egg prices have been so high recently. So there's a number of things going on. I don't think we've had a bioweapon situation in terms of intentional release at this point. But I do think that China is doing nefarious planning, and some of that nefarious planning got out of control with the coronavirus of a couple of years ago.
Such as what? Like, what was the most egregious part?
Well, I mean, the whole gain of function, they were working on something that could circumvent our best countermeasures, and it leaked out because they don't have the best biosecurity measures, and I think that's what happened, and a lot of people died, and the whole economy ground to a halt. It was a big mess.
And our kids are so far behind socially and academically because of that, because schools, here in Chicago, schools were shut down for 78 weeks before we were able to get back in. But how do you think President Trump handled COVID?
I think the biggest accomplishment of the first Trump administration was the development of the vaccine in terms of Operation Warp Speed. Mm-hmm. And it's a little weird that he stopped taking credit for it once there became complicated vaccine politics on the right. But I think that was a very positive step. But I do think that Fauci and the shut it all down folks had too much power in the first go-round. And I think that had, as you said, devastating effects on our schools and on our economy. So, we need to do better next time.
Yeah. Trevi, when you look at Donald Trump's inauguration, you saw all of the big tech guys there. When you look at the growing influence of tech companies and their leaders in political matters, what challenges and considerations should policymakers address to ensure a balance between innovation and accountability?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, these companies, their job is not accountability. Their job is the innovation part. The U.S. government, I guess, is in charge of the accountability. And that's actually the story of my book, The Power of the Money, which is about how these companies are constantly trying to do new things and dominate markets. And the U.S. government is often trying to catch up by building new regulations to counter them. But if you look at all the regulations building upon each other, we now have a regulatory regime that is so intense and so overwhelming that every company needs to have its first focus be on Washington and what Washington can do to the company. Yeah. So a lot of these regulations came from a good place to say, how can we rein in out of control innovation or potentially dangerous innovation? But when you add them all together, the overall effect is potentially stifling.
Now, the new Health and Human Services, JFK Jr., spoke at a cabinet meeting last week. I just want to hear what he had to say and get your reaction.
And we're trying to refocus the press to get them to pay attention to the chronic disease epidemic as you've asked us to. We have now 38% of American youth are pre-diabetic. This was unknown 30 years ago. Every child that becomes diabetic, there should be a headline about them. We have 100 million adults who are pre-diabetic or diabetic. And we have, we have now the autism rates have gone from now most recent numbers we think are going to be about 1 in 31, 1 in 20, so they're going up again from 1 in 10,000 when I was a kid. And we are going at your direction. We are going to know by September. We've launched a massive testing and research effort that's going to involve hundreds of scientists from around the world By September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic, and we'll be able to eliminate those exposures.
So big. Think of that. So it was 1 in 10,000 children had autism, and now it's 1 in 31. Not 31,000, 31. That's a horrible statistic, isn't it? And there's got to be something artificial out there that's doing this. So you think you're going to have a pretty good idea, huh?
We will know by September.
There will be no bigger news conference than that. So that's it. If you can come up with that answer where you stop taking something, you stop eating something, or maybe it's a shot, but something's causing it. It can't be from 10,000 to. Can you imagine that, Marco? That's a big number. Thank you very much. You're doing great.
Now, I know this is a very controversial topic if vaccines create or cause autism, but it is jarring if it was 1 in 10,000 and now it's 1 in every 31 kids are diagnosed or confirmed that they have autism.
Yeah, look, it's obviously a very complex thing, and it is a horrific statistic. Notice that RFK Jr. did not say that it was shots that was causing it. Trump was the only one who mentioned the shots. I think it's overly ambitious for RFK Jr. to say we're going to know the definitive answer to this question that is vexed scientists by September. But I do think it's important that we're looking into it because I do want to know. I mean, everyone who's of a certain generation has said we didn't have autism all over the place 50 years ago, and now it seems like every family knows someone that has it. So I want to know the answer. I just don't know that we'll be able to find it.
My niece is autistic, but is it possible that people are getting misdiagnosed? Like maybe they have something else, or could that be a part of it?
Diagnosis is an issue. I think this is something that is much more frequently diagnosed now than it was. But still, from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 31 seems like a really big jump.
Tevi, if it's
just be a diagnosis issue.
If it's not the vaccines, could it be some of the stuff that we're putting in our food? And
you mean the red dyes and all the processed foods?
Right.
Look at all the cereal, the junk cereal.
Could it be that?
Kids. My goodness.
Well, and that also, some of the food we eat could be responsible for the pre-diabetes, which is another thing that RFK Jr. mentioned there. But I don't think we have developed the definitive answers, and science takes some time. So I just don't know that we can have the answer. It's now almost May, and we're going to be doing this in September. I'd love to know the answer, but I don't know if we'll have it on that time frame.
Well, I got one last question for you. When you look at some of the public disputes between Elon and Peter Navarro, I want to play this audio for you, and then I have a question for you. I'd love to get your take.
First of all, Elon and I are great. It's not an issue.
Even though he called you a moron and dumber than a sack of bricks?
I've been called worse. Everything's fine with Elon. And look, Elon's doing a very good job with his team with waste, fraud, and abuse. That's a tremendous contribution to America. And no man doing that kind of thing should be subject to having his cars firebombed by crazies.
When you look at this openly criticizing key administration figures, how might such public disputes between influential private individuals and government officials impact policy formation and public perception? Formulation and public perception.
I'm so glad you asked that question because my last book was called Fight House, about infighting in the White House. And I think people have this misperception that just because somebody's fighting in the White House means they're implacable enemies and they can never talk to each other. It happens all the time. People leak against each other, or people come up with funny nicknames against someone else, like Musk called Navarro Peter Retardo. So that happens all the time, and they still have working relationships. These people are in meetings together all day into the late hours of the night. Yeah, sometimes they fight, sometimes they clash, sometimes they leak about one another, but it doesn't necessarily mean they don't talk and they don't ever work together.
Well, that's good. That's good to know, because Amy feels like that the administration is all over the place as it relates to their messaging on tariffs. I think it's organized chaos. I think it's purposely done. What are your take on that, Tevi?
Well, I don't know how organized it is, but yeah, I mean, there's clearly different views in the administration on this issue, and it's being expressed sometimes through leaks and sometimes through nicknames. But they could be completely aligned on other issues, like Navarro and Musk seem to be aligned on what DOGE is doing. And so in an administration, you're with people who are aligned with you, maybe 70% of the time. And on those 30% of the issues, those are usually the toughest and most complex issues. And it makes sense that there's disagreement, because if they were easy, they would have been solved long before they got to the White House.
That is so true. Trevi, Troy, we got to leave it there. He's the author of the book, The Power and the Money, the epic clashes between commanders-in-chief and titans of industry. Go out and get his books wherever they are sold. I believe his Twitter handle is Trevi Troy.
Tevi Troy. I'm following you right now.
I just followed him.
So did I.
Trevi Troy, thank you so much for joining us on The Morning Answer. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much. Love to come again sometime.
All right, let's do it.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Men, are you over 40? Are you struggling with low energy? Low T Center's testosterone replacement therapy is the solution. Hey, it's Dan Proft. I want to get you started today. Visit one of Low T Center's conveniently located clinics and get back to feeling your best. This April only, your